Hi friends, welcome to Book Talk once again. I'm sure you're enjoying our selection of books. Today we have another interesting book for you, and that is selected works of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, who created the magical Sherlock Holmes that we all know. The title that we've selected of out of Sherlock Holmes is A Scandal in Bohemia. Bohemia, we all know, is the earlier name of Czechoslovakia, somewhere in Central Europe. Now, before we go ahead with the plot, let me tell you something very interesting that goes on between Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson. You can call it the nok jhok in Hindi, a Hindi word that sufficiently defines this. Now, I'm just picking up a thread out of that. At the page 9 and 10 of the story, you'll find a very interesting conversation between Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson. Now they both are sitting and gossiping, and Sherlock Holmes is with a cigarette, and he asks Dr. Watson, what is the difference between seeing and observing? So Dr. Watson is a little confused. Well, he looks around for an answer, and then he says, and when he cannot answer, Sherlock Holmes takes over again and he says, well, you see, there is a big difference between what you see and what you observe. Now, Watson, you've been coming up to my room very frequently. Can you tell me how often? Watson replies, oh, it's very frequent, practically every day I come here. I see. And you walk up from the hall to my room? Watson says, yes, every day I walk up. So Sherlock Holmes says, can you tell me the number of stairs that you climb? Watson is baffled. He looks here and there and he says, well, I've not counted how many stairs, or even if I've come here very often. Sherlock Holmes says, Watson, that's the difference. You see, but you don't observe. Now, let me tell you, there are 17 steps that bring you from the hall to my room. So this is just a little banter that I've shared with you, and if you go through the series of Sherlock Holmes, you'll find many such episodes that will bring a smile to you on your faces, even when Sherlock Holmes is dealing with crime. Now, let us proceed with the plot. Dr. Watson recounts an adventure that started sometime on 20th of March 1888. He has just returned to Sherlock Holmes after his wedding, and they both are sitting in Holmes' room and gossiping. Suddenly, one person who is masked enters the room and introduces himself as Count Cram. Count Cram. And he says that he is an agent of a very wealthy person. And he starts discussing things with Sherlock Holmes. And during discussions, Sherlock Holmes is able to break through his guise, and then when the person realizes that Sherlock Holmes knows who he is, this person who called himself Count Cram introduces himself as, now it's a difficult name, long name, Wilhelm Gottsreich Sigimon von Ormstein. So it's a long word, long name. And then he further says that he is the Grand Duke of Kassel-Felstein, which happens to be the, and he also happens to be the hereditary king of Bohemia. And he further says that you see, Holmes, my marriage has been fixed and I'm getting married to one Clotilda Lothman von Saxe-Meiningen. I'll repeat the name. Clotilda Lothman von Saxe-Meiningen. She happens to be the young princess of a young Scandinavian princess. She happens to be a young Scandinavian princess. Now, this particular family to whom I am getting married is a very conservative kind of a family. They are very orthodox, and but then Sherlock Holmes says, "What exactly is the issue?" Then the Duke says, "Well, some 5 years before this marriage was settled, that is today, from today 5 years back, I was in a relationship with a person called Irene Adler." Now, Irene Adler was a well-known adventuress. She used to sing, and she was the prima donna of the Imperial Opera of Warsaw. And during our relationship, I had exchanged letters with her. I had also given a photograph of mine with her as a complimentary to honor the relationship. And now, when she has come to know that I am getting married to this young Scandinavian princess whose family is very orthodox, she is blackmailing me to send those letters and the photograph to that family. And if that happens, my marriage is going to break. And Sherlock Holmes, I am even willing to give you a province to get that photograph and letters back. So you need to help me now. So Holmes and Dr. Watson have gone through what the Duke or the future king had to tell them, and then Holmes tells Watson, "You meet me at 3 o'clock at Baker Street. You join me rather at 221 Baker Street at 3 o'clock the following afternoon." And after this, Holmes next morning goes to Irene Adler's house. He dresses up like a drunken, out of work groom. And when he goes there, he mixes around with those local stable workers. And then he discovers that there is a gentleman by the name of Barrister Godfrey Norton. Now, he happens to be a friend of Irene Adler, and he is from the Inner Temple. And so he's a little stunned that there is a male visitor who comes visiting Irene, and she stays in this colony which has got all this junky stuff around. And so he waits, and then he finds that this barrister Godfrey Norton has come out, and he takes a cab and he pushes off, and he's followed by Irene Adler herself when she leaves in her landau, and then Sherlock Holmes follows her and then finds that she has gone to one St. Monica's church in Edgware Road. So when Sherlock Holmes follows Irene Adler, and he very discreetly enters the church, and then he finds that there is a marriage that is proposed to happen, and the marriage happens to be of Irene Adler with the barrister. So suddenly Sherlock Holmes is noticed by these two people, and he is invited to be a witness in the wedding, and thereafter they both go in different directions. That is Irene Adler and the barrister Godfrey Norton. So after this, Sherlock Holmes returns to Baker Street, where Dr. Watson is waiting for him very, very impatiently. And he goes and explains and tells what all has happened, and has a big laugh that he was trying to chase these people, but he was trapped to become a witness for them. After this, Sherlock Holmes draws out a plan to get those letters and photograph, in which he includes Dr. Watson. Now Watson is quite readily willing to join the cause, and then they go to Irene Adler's house, and with a very good plan. And while waiting there, they find there are many of these unemployed people, youth, who are meandering in various directions, and they are ill-behaved, and they don't know how to carry themselves. So they all are hanging around there, where even Sherlock Holmes and Watson are in disguise, waiting for Irene Adler to come. Suddenly, Irene Adler's landau pulls up, and when it comes, there is almost a riot there, because everybody wants to be close to Irene. And seeing that, Sherlock Holmes goes close to Irene and tries to push all these youngsters away from her, and in the process he's hit and he is hurt. And this is when Irene helps Sherlock Holmes and takes her inside her house. And when they enter the house, Sherlock Holmes tries to motion to Irene to open the window, as perhaps he's feeling suffocated. And when she opens the window, Sherlock Holmes raises one hand of his as a plan to inform, or rather as a plan to semaphore to Dr. Watson that he should start now. And then Dr. Watson throws in a plumber's smoke rocket, and that comes and lands inside the window, inside the room, and starts billowing smoke. And when that happens, Sherlock Holmes starts yelling, "Fire, fire!" And this is when Irene Adler leaves everything and runs to the room inside, where near the recess there is a sliding cabinet just very close to the right bell pull, and there she tries to dig out something, and just then Sherlock Holmes runs outside, and from there he tries to watch what is Irene doing. The logic is, in case of a fire or a disaster, any woman would run to her most precious things at home and will try to get it out. So Sherlock Holmes wants to get inside and get the letter and the photograph, but he is unable to do because the coachman is watching him very intently. So then he leaves, and he comes and tells Watson everything, and also informs the king. Next day, they go back to Irene Adler's home, and there they are able to meet the elderly maid servant, who very sardonically informs that Irene Adler has left the country at 5:15 in the morning, taking a train from Charing Road railway station. And then suddenly Sherlock Holmes runs inside to the place where Irene was trying to get those letters and the photograph, and finds a photograph of Irene, a pretty one, dressed in a evening dress, and a letter which was dated midnight, in which she had written that, "Dear Sherlock Holmes, you tried all your best to camouflage and be around me just to figure out where I had kept those letters, but you couldn't, because all this while I knew you were in the hiding. Even yesterday evening, when a boy came and said good night to you, that was no one else but me. The king also tried to wrong me further by trying to get these letters through unscrupulous means, but I was adamant I'll never give it to him." The gist of the matter is that I have kept these letters of the king and the photograph not to harm him. I don't want to compromise him, but I will keep these letters and I will keep the photograph just in case he tries to act funny with me. But otherwise, I am not going to send these letters or the photograph to his very conservative in-laws. So Sherlock Holmes comes and informs this to the Duke and Watson. The Duke is very happy that the lady Irene Adler is not going to harm him in any manner, and he is likely to get married to this princess, the young princess of Scandinavia. And he says that, he remarks that Irene was indeed intelligent, she could have been my queen. But Sherlock Holmes says, well, she is indeed a smart one, she has outwitted me and outsmarted me professionally, and she has taken the letters and the photograph and gone. So she is a class better than you. The king is very happy that the matter has been sorted out, and the letters won't be sent to his in-laws, and so he offers an emerald ring out of his finger, and even tries to proffer his hand for a shake with Sherlock Holmes, but Sherlock Holmes is busy in the thoughts of Irene Adler, who has really outsmarted and outwitted him professionally. So that is the story. Of course, Dr. Watson has declared Irene Adler as dead intermittently in the intermittent period between when the story was being set up and the publication was on. And with that, Sherlock Holmes gives double respect to Irene Adler and calls her as the lady. So friends, if you've liked the story, please share it. Please also subscribe to our channel, and soon we'll be out with another book. Till then, goodbye. Thank you.